Hi everybody, Roy here. Hope you're all doing well. It's still a little chilly here. It's April 14th. We're still in the 30s. We're heading down to the 28th Friday night, 26th on Saturday night. So it's still a little chilly, but we're moving ahead. The plants are coming up as things occur for them. So I'd like to talk to you about the last show I did. I had a lot of good input, I think, from the plant design I created, from the Antone's painting, the Czech painter. And I think the questions I thought brought more questions to mind for me of how to share more with you. And the comments, questions and comments. So I thought I'd do a quick show about covering some of those questions, covering some of those contents. And what I'd like to start with, earlier in some of my shows I did last year, I started them with 2 questions. So I'd like to ask you those 2 questions now, and then let's think. They're made to be more thoughtful, to think a little deeper than just a quick response. And they really sometimes don't have direct answers or easy answers, and that's good that they aren't easily answered. So the first question I share with you is, what are your concerns when you are designing a garden? And each and every one of you, myself included, all the designers in the world, concerns come up. And the concerns could be the site, the concerns could be the time frame, the concerns could be what's requested from clients about what they'd like to see. So all of you have concerns. So I think when you look at what are your concerns, see where they come from. And that way you might have different ways to have a solution for those concerns, like maybe you don't have enough time to design something, you don't have enough awareness of the plants you'd like to use. And all of that can be addressed by simply, if you don't have enough time, why don't you have enough time? Maybe you're trying to rush something. If you don't understand the plants you're trying to use, maybe you need to take the time to understand them better, plant them for a year and take a look at them. So that's my first question. And again, how you approach the solution to those questions, that's the answers that will come for you. The second question is, how do you create your expectations for the results you'd like to have? Where do your expectations come from? Do your expectations come from, boy, I've been cooking and making wonderful meals, my family loves the food I make, or I painted the house and it looks beautiful, I make my own clothes. And a lot of times, because you have so much success with other skills, you anticipate those same successes to come just rapidly to you in gardening. So your expectations could be misleading simply because you're so successful with other things you like to do. And sometimes expectations come from other people putting expectations into our head. I know a lot of times someone will tell me, oh yeah, I did that, Roy, that was the easiest thing I ever had to do. And then when I look at it, it's the most complicated thing I've ever had to think about. So where do your expectations come of when something should be the way either you want it to be or other people tell you it should be? And when you look at the creation of those expectations, maybe you're asking too much too quickly. And maybe the depth of the research you put into the possibilities of what something can be aren't deep enough to be getting the results you'd like. So, and I look at it like this might be a rambling component to it, but when is it as we grow up that we're going to be millionaires? When I turned 24, darn it, I didn't become a millionaire. When I turned 48, darn it, I didn't make that million yet. Or when I'm 50, I didn't make that million. So did you reach a financial agreement? Like I know for myself, I reached a financial agreement with myself based on who I am and what my capabilities are, what I can do. And what made that agreement help me was my lifestyle needs. What is it I need to have a rich life? And a lot of times it wasn't an exorbitant amount of money I needed to have a rich life. It was the people, the friends I had, the plants I tried to understand, the way I viewed my life on earth and how I lived in some type of harmony with the living beings around me. And I continued to ask, Anna Maria, my wife, pointed this out to me, which is a wonderful question, is what is my future asking from me? So I think when you look at expectations and look at where you're at, is what is your future asking from you? You've got to be somewhere now with wonderful skills, wonderful ways of being loved and loving. So what is your future now asking from you to carry you into the next way of doing and creating something for yourself? How do you grow as a gardener? And something I've looked at is my growth continues because I never run out of possibilities for myself. And I think when you run out of possibilities for yourself as a gardener, or you run out of possibilities for your garden, it all stops. So as long as you keep possibilities in front of you and keep finding a way to be the constant intern, asking constant questions about the plants you've come across and the situation that you'd like to see become more successful in your garden, if those possibilities stay with you, you will never have an end to a gardening or becoming a better gardener. So one thing when I looked at some of the comments, one of the comments was really good. Someone observed that, Roy, it really makes sense to me when you're doing your last design, you really have to have knowledge of plants. And I agree 100%. Because without knowledge of plants, the plants at least you're using within your design, it's hard to become successful with the design because you're unaware of how they grow and how they live together from youth to maturity. So, and I didn't really stress that enough, the knowledge of plants. And it doesn't mean you have to have knowledge of thousands of plants. You don't have to overdo it. And I'm going to get into an exercise I'll give you later. We're going to have a test and a quiz. So buckle up. We're going to have that a little later in the show. But it's the knowledge of plants, and it's the knowledge of anything. You can't be a good plumber unless you have knowledge of pipes and a knowledge of water and a knowledge of the structure of homes and how water moves through a home. So anything you look at that you've accomplished, knowledge of cooking, you can't have knowledge of cooking without the ingredients you're putting into the meals you're preparing. You can't have knowledge of music unless you practice music. So all the things we've accomplished comes with an acquired knowledge of the pursuit of what it is that makes it fun and enjoyable. So one thing I wanted to bring up is some of the comments and questions too. It's review some of the old YouTubes I've done. I have one section, it's called Coming to Know Plants and Their Placement. And there's about 17 shows in there that I talk about, I discuss the character of plants. Who are they? What's their nature? Who are they as individuals? And then coming to know some plants and creating plant patterns. So if you review some of those shows, I get into more detail about how I approach coming to know plants and why it's so important to come to know plants more than just be aware of them. And I think I shared that with you before. If you have an awareness of something, that doesn't mean you know anything about it. And the same thing with design. When you put plants and patterns and designs, you'll be much more creative because you're going to make many, many more distinctions between plants. And the more distinctions you make between the plants you come to know, the higher your creativity level rises. So if you review some of those shows, and I'm always interested in what your comments will be on each show. And like I said, they're a little more detailed. So some of the comments I had, I'm reading them off my Microsoft because I won't remember them if I don't read them off here. And it said, watching your process, they had a little concern for some things they can't do. So people that he's going, I can't do that. I've never been able to do that. Every time I tried it, it died. I never had enough money. It was just, when you present yourself right away with a situation you can't do, you'll never do it. Because you've already convinced yourself it's not going to happen because maybe you tried it before or it's too much to learn or too much to know. So that really puts you in the wrong direction by saying I can't do it or I've never been able to be successful with something. So it's sharing with yourself, what can you do? Put yourself in a position, you know what, it's not that I can't do this. What can I do? And what do I need to do to move forward? What actions do I need to take to move forward? And it might be by looking something up. It might be going at a slower pace. It might be asking more questions about plants and asking more questions about where you're planting them. So if you're in a hurry to get something done, it'll never happen because you'll always be disappointed because gardening is not in a hurry. Gardening is moving at a pace in relationship to how the plants live collectively together. So you have to be thankful to the plants because they're slowing your lifestyle down. You can't speed them up. There's no gas pedal that you can push to get the plants to respond to what you want them to do, how you want them to be. I don't want to disappoint you. Plants will never do what you want. They don't care. They don't care what you want. So they're never going to be doing what you want. But when you understand and come to know them with patience, that's a big part of it, then you and the plants can share happiness and a good life together. And it's all about coming to know them. And just like they will come to know you as a gardener. And another comment came, someone had mentioned black walnuts. She was so very disturbed. She couldn't get anything to grow under black walnuts. And what did survive under black walnuts seemed to take over the area, and she had no room to do anything. So she just felt that nothing she could try would work. One, because she already defeated herself by saying nothing will grow under black walnuts. And that's a gardening rumor. I mean, it's hard for annuals to live under black walnuts. So what did I do? I simply went online. So I took 6 seconds to type in what lives under black walnuts. I found 132 plants on one website that lives under black walnuts. So if you do have black walnuts, that's where you ask the question, how can I take an action? How can I make something positive happen? And not listen as much to the negative rumors that nothing will live under black walnuts. So when I found 132 plants, I decided, well, what can I do to show this process? So I thought, well, I can begin to take an action. So what I did here, I'll show you. I completed a small grid. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 by 10. It's 70 square feet. And I looked at the plants online. I took out of 132, I listed 1, 2, 3, I listed 4 of them. And they're plants I'm familiar with, so that way I decided to use something I was familiar with instead of trying to put in plants that I didn't really know that well. So one is Aster divaricatus, a woodland aster. Sedges live under walnuts, so I took 2 I'm familiar with, Carex albicans and Carex shortiana. And I took native ginger, Asarum canadense. It's a ground cover, low-growing native ginger. It's a beautiful plant with nice round foliage. So with these 4, I simply had the Asarum, that's a ground cover, round leaves, contrasting the Carex with the nice grassy texture. The Carex shortiana is a taller sedge with beautiful black flowers. Carex albicans is a mounding, very soft textured sedge. And Aster divaricatus is a woodland aster with narrow leaves, purple stems, and white flowers in late August, September through September. So it's a beautiful textural plant. So I've got nice narrow leaves, black stems, mounding sedges, upright sedge, and a ground cover ginger with beautiful round leaves. So I started the pattern already to give me some momentum before the show. And I simply put a grouping of ginger here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I started Carex albicans here. So I continued the Carex. I'm going to continue Carex albicans in these little circles. I'm putting on about 12-inch centers. And then right here, I decided I'd like to put the upright Carex shortiana. So I'll have this vertical look here. A few more Carex albicans here, up to the edge. Just filling them in with Carex albicans. And I'm going to put one more shortiana here, then Carex albicans to the edge. And then what am I going to do with Aster divaricatus? It's more upright, slightly mounding. So I'm just going to put right here. And I've made a decision. This is my front along the walkway. So you want to know front and back. This is my front. This is the pathway here, grass pathway or a walkway. This is the back of the garden, or it could be a black walnut right here. I don't know. This isn't something I've defined as a real space. I'm making this space up. But I'm going to assume there's maybe a black walnut right here. So I put Aster divaricatus in here. And in front of that, off to the side, I'm going to put a nice group of the Carex shortiana upright. So I have vertical in front of the vertical mounding aster. And I'm just going to finish this off with Carex albicans. So I've created a simple planting of 4 things. I've got the texture of the ginger here, nice round, flat texture, round leaves, contrasting the soft mounding Carex albicans. I've got the upright vertical Carex shortiana here and here, and then one group of Aster divaricatus right back here. Give me a nice mound of white flowers. The Carex will be green, both sedges will be green into November. And well, how do I know that? Well, I know it because I've grown them for these particular plants for maybe 15, 20 years. But if you have these particular plants in the garden or you're familiar with them, it only takes you 3 to 4 years to come to know them, because when you're around them 3 to 4 years, they're never going to change who they are. So what you see the first, second, and third year, they'll be more immature. By the third, fourth, and fifth year, they'll be adults, and you can see them in the adult stage and from the immature stage, and that's what they'll be for time eternal, unless the growing conditions change. So that's how you come to know the plants, and then you've read something about them too. You've looked them up initially. So I thought I'd show you what I've done with 70 square feet under a black walnut. Simply found these plants by going online and looking them up. And some will say, well, you know the plants, you know them for 15 years. Well, I could go through 132 plants and maybe I'll look up 10 of them just because I'm curious, and I'll see which 10 grow in my region, what their growth rate and growth habit are. This one's upright, this one's mounding. And then I'll create a grid, 70 square feet, and I'll just start placing them together and see how they do. And you'll learn so much about them simply by doing that before you put one plant in the ground. And you can practice this and change this around for an hour and a half or so, till you get a little tired because you're thinking so hard trying to create different patterns. And one thing to do is say, if you're done with this one, make another grid, 7 by 10 feet, and create a new pattern with the plants. Keep changing it to see what you come up with, and then plant it somewhere and see how it does. So this is just one way of approaching it, but it's simply taking action and looking things up. And I've had some people say, well, I can't afford all those plants. So I'm going to do a show for you when the weather clears up. I started growing plants in 1978. I didn't know a perennial from a doorknob. I'm an outdoor ed teacher. I never had a hort class. So it wasn't like these plants were something, when I was born, I knew anything about any of this. And I started growing them under one window screen. I took a window screen from the church. They threw them out. I put them on the ground, on plywood, on some cinder blocks, under one window screen. And I'll show you this. I can grow 600 perennials. And I'll show you what plants you can grow and what plants you can grow in the future. So your commitment is pull a window screen out of a dumpster somewhere if you don't have one in the garage or in the attic. Put them on some cinder blocks, and the window screen breaks up the rainfall. And then when the rainfall is broken up, your seedlings don't get hit very hard by rainfall, and it's a nice shade for your seedlings. So we'll go through a show, and I'll demonstrate how you can grow 600 to 700 perennials under one window screen. So that way, what's not holding you up is I can't afford to buy anything, or the plants are too expensive. So let me move on from that. And what I'd like to move into, and this is a small beginning, but that's how we start small. I'd like to move into, I call it, here's a quiz and a project for you. So I teach a class at COD, so I thought I'm going to give all of you out there a quiz and just see how you do, because you can't screw up. You can't make mistakes. There's nothing you can do. What you can do, you have choice to. You don't have to take the quiz, and you don't have to do the project, so I don't want you to feel pressured. So here's the quiz, is make a list of 5 plants you believe you know very well. 5 plants that you've grown for long periods of time, you have in your backyard, you're very comfortable with them as good friends. You know their growth rate, you know their growth habit, you know their spreading capabilities. Just list 5 plants you're tremendously comfortable with, extremely comfortable with. And write down their growth rate and growth habit from youth to maturity. And I mean from April, like say it's 3 inches tall in April or mid-April or late April, and it gets 36 inches tall by mid-July. That's its growth rate. And its growth habit, does it grow vertically or mounding? Just write that down. And in addition to that, write down its maximum height, write down the type of flower it has, write down the flower color, write down the bloom time, Write down the cultural needs for it. Does it need, what type of soil does it need? What type of water conditions does it need? And sunlight. What type of sunlight does it need, or shade? Those are the cultural needs of the plant. So write all that down. And it's only 5 plants, so it won't take up, all your time. But every time you write every word down, that will ingrain that plant deeper into who you are. The more you write it down, the more that plant will become part of who you are, and the more you'll understand who that plant is. Keep writing it down. And beyond that, describe the development of its stems and foliage from April to November. What color is the foliage when it emerges from the ground? Is it reddish green, green? How small is it? What shape does it take as it goes into June and July? What color are the stems? When do the stems go from purple to green, if they do? What are the changes in foliage? Not just the flowers, but from April into November. What's the fall color? How does it break down from frost? Write all that down. Even if you don't know that much, write down as much as you can. And then, does the plant have a fibrous root system? Does it mean very small and fibrous and shallow and deep fibrous? Or does it have a taproot or a kind of a woody root system, kind of like a crooked pencil kind of root system? As much as you know about that plant, write down. And the next part is get some grid paper like I have right here. I prepared an area so I can show you a demonstration. Just get some grid paper, and it's not expensive. Make sure you got the eraser. I always think, look how worn out this is. And I go through them like gangbusters. And a simple pencil, I have a mechanical pencil. So you create, I have this is a 10 by 10 bed. Okay, so I created a 10 by 10 bed. And this off to the side, if you have 5 plants, put down 5 plants like Echinacea, Perovskia, Rotidiba. And you're probably saying, Roy, I don't know what any of those are. I'm not using the common name. I kind of mentioned before because there's too many common names. So if you have Echinacea is purple coneflower, Perovskia is Russian sage, Rotidiba is gray-headed coneflower. But again, it could be called by something else. If I go to Kansas, Rotidiba could totally be some other common name for the plant. So I think I'll just use 3 here. I'll add one more. I'll put in Rudbeckia, black-eyed Susan. So we'll put in Rudbeckia. These are very common. Rotidiba is not that common, but people put a lot of native plants in. Rotidiba is pretty common to people using native plants. So I've covered perennials and some natives. And these are plants you know so well. They're your friends. And I'll put a little mark here. This is a check. This is a box. This is a beautiful star. And this is a circle. So I've got my geometric figures here. And then what you do is just start laying them out. How would you put these patterns together? You'll have your 4 or 5 plants. And you say, boy, I think I want Echinacea here, here, here. Okay, I got Echinacea. And I think I want to put some Perovskia, the blue. I like the blue foliage. You know it's blue. You've grown it for years. I'll put 4 here like this. And I'm going to put some more Echinacea here, 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 here. And then what do I have? Oh, I think I'll put a group of Rudbeckia right here going down this way. And I'm going to put another Perovskia right here, right here. And then, I think, well, I'm getting too close to the edge. I'll put another Rudbeckia. I'll finish it off with Rudbeckia. And then what do I have? I have Echinacea Rotidiba. So I'll put some more coneflowers here and here. And I think I'll put the gray-headed coneflower with my star. I'll put 2 here, 1 here, and here. And then I'm like, okay, I have this hole, this gap here. So what do I need? I think I'll finish it off with Perovskia here, here. And I'll put coneflowers in between. So I have the vertical coneflowers and the mounting Perovskia. And you know that because you've grown them for years and years. You know Perovskia is mounting. You know Echinacea is vertical. So you're not being fooled by what they do because you've grown them for a number of years. You know the Rudbeckia is going to be upright and mounding with a loose flower top, and the Rotidiba is going to be taller. Gray-headed coneflower, it's going to bloom in late July. And then you might finish it off with a few Rudbeckia here. There. And I think I'm going to erase this. I don't like that Rudbeckia I put in. I just take the eraser, and I think I'm going to put another echinacea up. I think I'll put a Perovskia here. So I've got Perovskia, and what I have here, if you look at what I've created with this one, I got a lot of height. So I've got 36 inches. The Rudbeckia might be 28 to 30. I've got 36 to 42 inches with the Perovskia, depending on what variety I've used. So this whole area is about 36 inches tall, and you will know that it's going to be that tall again because you've grown them. And when will it reach that height? You'll know that too. It'll be mid-July. That's when each of these plants will reach their maximum height. So what you can do is look at that and say, boy, that wasn't bad, because it's plants you know and you're familiar with. But the next part would be take this all apart again and do another grid and another grid and another grid, and don't use the same patterns. Say, change it to Perovskia up here and have Rotidiba flowing through it, or have Rotidiba with white coneflowers flowing through it, or Echinacea. Keep changing it, and then interpret what you've done, and ask yourself, how can I take care of this? What's going to be the outcome? Because again, these are plants you're very familiar with. And then as you move along, after you do this 2 or 3 times, change the pattern. So if I take this 10 by 10 and I move in from this point to this point, corner to corner, that's 13 feet. So if I reduce corner to corner by 3 feet and I squeeze the pattern together, I have a 7 by 14 bed, because it's going to bubble out this way. So now how does that affect your patterns when you change it? You compress it. So you can look back and say, boy, I'm going to have a mess. Everything's tightened up. How am I going to change my patterns? What do I take out? And how will I add plants of that to compensate for squeezing the planting together? And that's too good. And you're not doing it in reality. You're sitting with pen and pencil and the eraser. So you can make a pattern that's 7 feet wide by 14 feet long. And then you can see for yourself how everything changes simply by reducing the size of the bed and changing the pattern. So all this keeps becoming part of who you are. The change, the way it evolves, how the plantings change. And then after you do it 4 or 5 times, it's not sitting there all day, but it's doing it once a week, twice a week, and then actually planting it and seeing how it looks in reality. Go out there and put this in. And don't expect it to be perfect. Because I don't know what perfect is, and I don't think you know what perfect is. You'll have those expectations sometimes are what shortchange us. And then ask yourself one question. What element am I missing? What do I feel like I really need here? And that could be something vertical and grassy, maybe something loose to flow between the vertical plants and the mounding plant of the Perovskia. So what can you find that's vertical and grassy? Maybe you look up a grass that fits well with that. It could be a panicum. You look something up online, vertical, tall grass, gets 42 inches tall. You find it, and you incorporate it into your plan and see if it has the characteristics that fit into the style you're creating. So that's the joy of this, is that self-discovery of what you need. Boy, I need something vertical and loose. And then finding a plant to try. You don't need 10 or 20 of them. Find one. And see how that one fits into your pattern of 5 plants and how you can use it. And practice that over and over again. Just a few times. But it's the same as if you're taking up the trumpet, the violin, any kind of an instrument, even fly fishing. You have to practice, practice, practice. To be a wonderful chef, to do anything in life, you have to practice. And the key is minimize your expectations and build off of your successes. And the more you build off of your successes, small as they might seem to you, as soon as you get this pattern developed, you keep doing it over and over, you're going to be unstoppable. People are going to go, how are you doing all that? But you have to take it moment to moment to moment. Start with the plants you know. Ask what can I add to this, and will it fit the style of patterns I enjoy, the style of gardening I enjoy. You could even put some bell peppers in here if you like, or parsley as a ground cover. There's no rules of what you can and can't do. It's just how does it fit into your procedure, your practice, and who you are. It's all about who you are. And limiting, I can't do this, I've never been this, or I've never been that. Usually for me, that's always held me back. I've never been good at this, or I've never been good at that. So I have to realize that's just something stopping me from accomplishing my goals and objectives and what I'd like to do. So that's kind of it. I hope I've helped you with more answers, and I hope I've created more questions by doing this too. So we'll answer some, we'll find some solutions together of how to understand and enjoy plants more. And again, that first observation was, right, it's all about plant knowledge. Everything we do is based on the knowledge of everything we need to accomplish and understand about plants or anything we're practicing that we'd like to be happy with, really. It's all about happiness. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.